What if a small 5-cent coin, sitting forgotten in an old drawer, could spark rumors of a fortune worth millions? It sounds impossible. After all, we're talking about a nickel, a coin so common that most people barely glance at one before dropping it into a jar, a cup holder, or the bottom of a pocket. But every once in a while, a coin emerges from the shadows and becomes the center of an incredible mystery. A coin that collectors talk about, treasure hunters search for, and ordinary people suddenly begin checking their change to find. Today, we're exploring one of those fascinating coins, the 1974 Jefferson nickel. And along the way, we'll uncover why some people believe certain examples could be worth extraordinary amounts of money, why collectors remain fascinated by this issue, and what makes this seemingly ordinary nickel so much more interesting than it first appears. To understand the story, we need to travel back to America in 1974. The United States was going through a turbulent period. Inflation was rising. The nation was dealing with political uncertainty. The Watergate scandal dominated headlines. Yet while history was unfolding, millions of coins continued rolling out of America's mints every day. Among them was the Jefferson nickel. The Jefferson nickel had already been part of American life for decades. First introduced in 1938, it replaced the Buffalo nickel and featured the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, one of America's founding fathers and the third president of the United States. On the reverse side appeared Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home. By 1974, generations of Americans had carried Jefferson nickels in their pockets. The design had become familiar, trusted, and instantly recognizable. But the 1974 Jefferson nickel was different from most nickels of its era. The letter S beneath the date tells an important story. It stands for the San Francisco Mint. Unlike many circulating nickels produced for everyday commerce, the San Francisco Mint was primarily striking proof coins during this period. Proof coins are special collector editions. They aren't intended for circulation. Instead, they're manufactured using highly polished dies and specially prepared planchets to create sharp details and mirror-like surfaces. The result is stunning. When a freshly struck proof nickel catches the light, it almost looks like a miniature piece of art rather than ordinary money. Millions of proof nickels were produced in 1974, but here's where things become interesting. Not all proof coins are created equal. Collectors quickly realized that some examples displayed exceptional quality. Certain coins featured remarkable contrast between the frosted portrait and the reflective background. Others were struck with extraordinary sharpness, revealing details many people never notice. And then there were the rare mistakes. Whenever coins are produced, even under strict quality control, unusual errors can occasionally occur. A tiny imperfection, an unusual strike, adi anomali. Most never escape the mint, but sometimes they do. And when they do, collectors pay attention. Over the years, stories began circulating throughout the coin collecting community about unusual 1974 nickels. Could there be undiscovered varieties? Could hidden treasures still be tucked away inside forgotten proof sets? Could a rare error be sitting unnoticed in someone's collection? These questions transformed an otherwise common proof nickel into something far more exciting. After all, treasure hunting isn't always about finding pirate gold or ancient artifacts. Sometimes it's about spotting what everyone else overlooks. Imagine opening a dusty box inherited from a relative. Inside are old proof sets purchased decades ago and then forgotten. At first glance, they seem ordinary. But what if one contained a coin with an extremely rare characteristic? What if generations had overlooked something hiding in plain sight? That possibility fuels the passion of collectors around the world. And it helps explain why coins like the 1974 Jefferson nickel continue attracting attention. Now let's address the biggest question. Where did the stories of million-dollar values come from? In the world of coin collecting, headlines often focus on extraordinary auction results. A coin isn't valuable simply because it's old. It becomes valuable because of rarity, condition, demand, historical significance, or unique characteristics. Sometimes a coin can be incredibly common in average condition yet worth a fortune in near-perfect condition. That's because perfection is surprisingly rare. Professional grading services evaluate coins using strict standards. A tiny scratch invisible to most people can dramatically affect value. The difference between a very nice proof coin and a nearly flawless proof coin can mean hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Collectors competing for the finest known examples are often willing to pay substantial premiums. This creates fascinating situations where two coins that appear nearly identical to the average observer can have dramatically different market values. And that's where rumors begin. An exceptional coin sells for a record price. The story spreads online. The value gets exaggerated. Soon people are claiming every coin of that date is worth a fortune. Before long, a 5-cent piece becomes the subject of million-dollar legends. The reality is usually much more complicated. Yet the mystery itself keeps people searching. What makes the 1974's Jefferson Nickel especially interesting is that it represents a moment in American numismatic history. It belongs to an era before digital marketplaces, before instant online price guides, and before collectors could share discoveries with millions of people in seconds. Back then, information traveled slowly. A rare variety might remain unknown for years. A hidden treasure could sit quietly in a collection before anyone recognized its significance. That sense of discovery still captivates collectors today. Every proof set from the 1970s carries a small possibility of revealing something unusual. Every coin invites closer inspection. Every detail matters. And that's part of what makes coin collecting so fascinating. You're not simply collecting metal. You're collecting stories. You're preserving history. You're connecting with the people who designed, produced, used, and saved these objects decades ago. Think about the journey of a 1974's Jefferson nickel. It began as raw metal. It passed through sophisticated minting equipment. It was carefully packaged for collectors. It survived changing economic conditions, changing generations, and changing technology. More than 50 years later, people are still talking about it, still examining it, still wondering whether a remarkable example remains undiscovered. That's an incredible legacy for a coin worth only 5 cents at face value. And perhaps that's the most valuable lesson hidden inside this story. Treasures don't always look like treasures. Sometimes they appear ordinary. Sometimes they're hiding in plain sight. Sometimes they're tucked away in an old drawer, a forgotten collection, or a box nobody has opened for decades. The 1974's Jefferson Nickel reminds us that curiosity can transform something simple into something extraordinary. Whether or not a specific example is worth a fortune, the excitement of the search remains very real. The thrill of discovery remains real. And the possibility that an overlooked coin could reveal an unexpected story continues inspiring collectors around the world. So the next time you come across an old proof set or a collection inherited from a family member, take a closer look. Examine the details. Study the history. Ask questions. Because every coin has a story. And sometimes the most fascinating stories begin with a simple 5-cent piece that everyone else ignored. What do you think? Have you ever searched through old coins and discovered something surprising? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoy stories about hidden treasures, rare coins, forgotten history, and the hunt for valuable collectibles, make sure to subscribe and join us for more incredible discoveries. You never know which ordinary coin might turn out to have an extraordinary story. What if I told you that a small 5-cent coin sitting in an old jar, forgotten in a kitchen drawer, or hiding between couch cushions could spark rumors of an $8 million treasure? It sounds impossible. After all, it's just a nickel. But for decades, coin collectors and treasure hunters have been fascinated by stories of ordinary-looking coins that turned out to be worth astonishing amounts of money. And among the coins that frequently appear in these conversations is the 1978 Jefferson Nickel, a coin struck in Denver and released into circulation by the hundreds of millions. So why are people still searching for it today? And could one of these nickels really be worth a fortune? To answer that question, we have to travel back to America in 1978. The United States was experiencing a time of change. Gas prices, inflation, and economic uncertainty were on the minds of many Americans. Yet every day, millions of people exchanged coins without giving them a second thought. Among those coins was the Jefferson nickel. The Jefferson nickel had already become a familiar part of American life. First introduced in 1938, it replaced the Buffalo nickel and featured the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, one of the most influential figures in American history. Jefferson was more than a president. He was a statesman, philosopher, inventor, diplomat, and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. His vision helped shape the United States, making his image a fitting choice for one of America's most widely circulated coins. On the reverse side stood Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home. The design was elegant, recognizable, and deeply connected to American history. By 1978, the Denver Mint was producing enormous quantities of nickels to meet the nation's demand. More than 500 million 1978 D. Jefferson nickels were struck. That number alone reveals an important truth. Most 1978 D nickels are not rare. In fact, millions still exist today. So if they're so common, why do collectors keep looking for them? The answer lies in something that has fueled treasure hunts for generations: the possibility of finding the exception. History has shown that mistakes happen. Even in highly controlled government mints, errors occasionally slip through. A coin may be struck off-center. A die may crack. Letters may appear doubled. A planchet may be defective. And when these unusual mistakes escape into circulation, they can transform an ordinary coin into a collector's dream. Imagine receiving change at a grocery store and unknowingly walking away with a coin worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That possibility keeps collectors searching through rolls of nickels every day. The 1978 D nickel has become particularly interesting because some examples have been discovered with unusual characteristics, including striking errors and exceptionally preserved surfaces. While most are worth only face value, certain specimens in remarkable condition can command significantly higher prices than ordinary examples. But here's where the story becomes even more fascinating. Over the years, rumors began spreading online. Stories emerged claiming that specific 1978 D nickels were worth hundreds of thousands, millions, or even $8 million. The claims traveled quickly. Social media posts were shared. Videos generated millions of views. Collectors rushed to inspect their pocket change. Could it be true? Was there really an $8 million nickel hiding in circulation? The reality is far more complicated. In the world of coin collecting, value depends on several critical factors: rarity, condition, demand, historical significance, and authenticity. Without these elements working together, extraordinary values are nearly impossible to achieve. An ordinary circulated 1978 D nickel simply doesn't meet those requirements. However, the rumor itself reveals something remarkable about human nature. People love treasure stories. We want to believe that extraordinary discoveries are still waiting to be made. And sometimes they are. Throughout history, incredible coin discoveries have shocked experts. Rare pennies have been found in old piggy banks. Valuable silver coins have appeared in inherited collections. Forgotten coin jars have contained pieces worth thousands of dollars. These stories are real, and they remind us that hidden treasures sometimes exist in the most unexpected places. The excitement surrounding the 1978 D nickel comes from this very idea. Not necessarily because every coin is valuable, but because one unusual example might be. Now consider this. What if two nickels were placed side by side? To the average person, they would appear identical. Yet one could be worth 5 cents while the other might attract serious interest from collectors. Why? Because tiny details matter. A microscopic die variety, a subtle striking error, an exceptionally preserved surface untouched by circulation. These differences can dramatically influence value. Professional grading services often examine coins under magnification, evaluating every detail. The condition scale ranges from heavily worn examples to nearly perfect specimens. The highest grade coins are often the most difficult to find because everyday circulation gradually damages surfaces over time. Think about the journey of a typical nickel. Passes through countless hands. It rattles inside cash registers. It bounces around pockets and purses. It endures decades of wear. Finding one that remains virtually untouched is surprisingly difficult. That's why collectors pay close attention to quality. For some, the thrill isn't just about money. It's about the hunt. Searching through rolls of coins becomes a modern treasure expedition. Every nickel examined carries a small possibility of revealing something unusual. Most searches end without a major discovery. But occasionally a surprise appears. And that's enough to keep the adventure alive. The 1978 D. Jefferson nickel represents more than a coin. It represents curiosity, patience, hope, and the enduring belief that valuable discoveries remain hidden in plain sight. Perhaps that's why stories about million-dollar coins continue capturing imaginations around the world. Even when the claims are exaggerated, they encourage people to look more closely at the objects they encounter every day. A coin that seems ordinary may have an extraordinary story behind it. A simple piece of metal can connect us to history, to Thomas Jefferson, to the Denver Mint, to the millions of Americans who carried that coin through decades of economic and cultural change. And maybe that's the greatest treasure of all. Not the promise of $8 million, but the realization that history is literally sitting in our hands. So the next time you receive a nickel in change, take a closer look. Check the date. Look for the mint mark. Examine the details. You probably won't discover an $8 million fortune, but you might uncover something fascinating. And sometimes the search itself is worth more than the treasure. Now I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever found an unusual coin in your pocket change? Do you own a 1978 D. Jefferson nickel? Share your story in the comments below. And if you enjoy uncovering hidden treasures, forgotten history, and the incredible stories behind America's coins, make sure to subscribe and join us for the next adventure. Because you never know, the next great discovery could already be waiting in your pocket. Have you ever looked at a nickel in your pocket and wondered if it could be hiding a secret worth far more than 5 cents? Most people spend them without a second thought. They disappear into vending machines, cash registers, and couch cushions every single day. But every now and then, a seemingly ordinary coin sparks curiosity among collectors and treasure hunters alike. One such coin is the 1981 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. It features the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the front and the famous Monticello estate on the reverse. Nothing appears unusual. No gold color. No dramatic design. No obvious mistake. Just a simple 5-cent coin. Yet for years, collectors have searched through rolls of nickels hoping to find special examples of this coin. Why? Because sometimes the most interesting treasures are hidden in plain sight. To understand the story, we need to travel back to 1981. The United States was entering a new decade. Inflation had affected the economy throughout the late 1970s. Ronald Reagan had just become president. Personal computers were beginning to appear in homes and offices. The world was changing rapidly. Meanwhile, the United States Mint continued producing billions of coins to meet the needs of everyday commerce. Among those coins was the Jefferson nickel. The Jefferson nickel had already been part of American life for more than 4 decades. First introduced in 1938, it replaced the Buffalo nickel and honored Thomas Jefferson, one of America's founding fathers and the nation's 3rd president. Jefferson was chosen not only because of his role in American history, but also because of his connection to Monticello, his famous Virginia estate. The reverse design featured this remarkable home, creating one of the most recognizable coin designs in American history. By 1981, millions of Americans handled Jefferson nickels every day without giving them much thought. But collectors always pay attention. And that's where the mystery of the 1981 no mint mark nickel begins. When people hear the phrase no mint mark, many immediately assume they've discovered something rare. After all, shouldn't every coin have a mint mark? The answer is surprisingly interesting. In 1981, nickels were produced at multiple mint facilities. Coins struck in Denver carried a D mint mark. Coins struck in San Francisco for collector sets often carried an S mint mark. But coins struck in Philadelphia generally had no mint mark at all. That means a 1981 Jefferson nickel without a mint mark was most likely produced at the Philadelphia Mint. Far from being an error, the absence of a mint mark was completely normal. And yet that doesn't make the coin uninteresting. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels in 1981. These coins circulated widely across the country and became part of everyday American life. Imagine the journey of just one nickel. It leaves the mint in a sealed bag. It travels to a bank. A customer receives it in change. It passes through grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, movie theaters, and countless pockets. For decades, it changes hands again and again. Eventually, it ends up in someone's coin jar. Perhaps that someone is you. Now here's where things become fascinating. While ordinary circulated examples are usually worth only a small premium above face value, collectors know that condition changes everything. A heavily worn coin may be worth only 5 cents. But a coin preserved in exceptional condition can be worth much more. Why? Because finding a coin that survived decades without significant wear is surprisingly difficult. Think about it. Most nickels are used constantly. They get dropped, scratched, scraped, and exposed to dirt and moisture. Every year that passes makes pristine examples harder to find. As a result, professional coin grading services evaluate coins based on their condition. The highest grade examples can command substantial premiums compared to ordinary circulated pieces. Suddenly, that simple nickel becomes much more interesting. But condition isn't the only thing collectors search for. They also hunt for errors. And this is where excitement truly enters the picture. Throughout American coinage history, minting errors have captured the imagination of collectors. Sometimes a coin is struck off-center. Sometimes a die develops cracks. Sometimes a planchet problem creates unusual surfaces. Sometimes doubling appears in the design. These mistakes transform ordinary coins into fascinating collectibles. As a result, many treasure hunters examine 1981 nickels carefully, hoping to discover a rare error variety that escaped into circulation. Most won't find one, but the possibility keeps the hunt alive. And that's part of what makes coin collecting so addictive. Every coin tells a story. Every roll could contain a surprise. Every pocketful of change might reveal something unexpected. There is also another reason collectors appreciate the 1981 Jefferson nickel. It represents a specific moment in American history. Coins are tiny time capsules. When you hold a 1981 nickel, you're holding an object created during a completely different era. Think about everything that has happened since then. Technological revolutions, political changes, economic shifts, entire generations growing up. Yet that little nickel survives as a physical connection to the past. It witnessed history, and somehow it found its way into the present. That connection gives coins a unique emotional power. Unlike many historical artifacts locked away in museums, coins were designed to circulate among ordinary people. Millions of hands touched them. Millions of stories intersected with them. Every scratch and mark represents part of that journey. For some collectors, that history is worth more than any price guide. But what about the famous Monticello design itself? The building shown on the reverse is one of the most important homes in American history. Designed by Thomas Jefferson, Monticello reflected his passion for architecture, innovation, and learning. Its appearance on the nickel serves as a lasting tribute to Jefferson's influence on the nation. Interestingly, many people spend years using Jefferson nickels without ever closely examining Monticello. Yet the design contains remarkable detail. Collectors often inspect the steps of Monticello when evaluating high-grade coins. Strong, sharp details can dramatically affect desirability and value. This level of attention may seem surprising to non-collectors. After all, it's only a nickel. But that's exactly what makes coin collecting special. Collectors see things others overlook. They notice details hidden in plain sight. They appreciate history embedded in everyday objects. And sometimes those observations lead to remarkable discoveries. Could a rare error still be hiding in circulation? Could an exceptionally preserved example be sitting unnoticed in an old coin jar? Could someone unknowingly spend a collectible coin at a convenience store tomorrow? The answer is yes. And that's why people continue searching. The thrill isn't always about finding a fortune. Sometimes it's about the possibility, the mystery, the connection to history, the excitement of never knowing what the next coin might reveal. When it comes to the 1981 no-mint mark Jefferson nickel, the reality is both simple and fascinating. Most examples are common. Most are worth only modest amounts. Yet the coin remains an important piece of American numismatic history. It represents the Philadelphia Mint's production during a pivotal era. It carries the legacy of Thomas Jefferson. It showcases the iconic Monticello design. And it reminds us that even the most ordinary objects can tell extraordinary stories. So the next time you receive change, take a closer look. Examine that nickel before tossing it aside. Notice the date. Study the details. Think about where it has been and whose hands may have held it over the last 4 decades. Because treasure isn't always measured in dollars. Sometimes treasure is history. Sometimes treasure is discovery. And sometimes treasure is a simple 1981 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark, quietly waiting to share its story with anyone curious enough to listen. If you enjoy uncovering hidden stories behind America's coins, share your thoughts below. Have you ever found an interesting nickel in your pocket change? What was your most exciting coin discovery? And don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating coin histories, rare coin mysteries, and treasure hunting adventures that could help you spot valuable coins hiding in plain sight. What if the next coin worth a small fortune is sitting in a forgotten jar, tucked away in a dresser drawer, or hiding among the loose change in your pocket right now? It sounds unbelievable, but stories like this are exactly why millions of people have become fascinated with coin collecting. Every year, ordinary-looking coins are discovered that turn out to be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars. And among the coins that continue to attract attention from treasure hunters is the 1984 Thomas Jefferson nickel. At first glance, there is nothing extraordinary about it. It's small, common, and easy to overlook. Millions of Americans spent these coins without a second thought. Yet hidden within the story of this humble nickel are rare varieties, valuable errors, and a history that stretches back to one of the most influential figures in American history. So what makes the 1984 Jefferson nickel so intriguing? And why are collectors still searching through rolls of nickels decades later hoping to find one? To answer that question, we need to travel back to 1984. The United States was experiencing a decade of technological change, economic growth, and cultural transformation. Personal computers were beginning to enter homes. Music, movies, and television were evolving rapidly. Amid all these changes, the United States Mint continued producing billions of coins for everyday commerce. Among them was the Jefferson nickel. The Jefferson nickel series had already been circulating for nearly half a century. First introduced in 1938, the coin replaced the famous Buffalo nickel and featured a portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the front and his historic Virginia home, Monticello, on the reverse. Jefferson was not only the 3rd president of the United States but also the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. His influence on American history was enormous, making him a fitting figure to appear on one of the nation's most widely used coins. By 1984, the Philadelphia Mint was producing huge numbers of Jefferson nickels. That year alone, more than 700 million nickels were struck at Philadelphia. The coin carried the P mint mark, located to the right of Jefferson's portrait. Interestingly, the Philadelphia Mint had not traditionally used a mint mark on most circulating coins. However, beginning in 1980, nickels from Philadelphia started carrying the P designation, making the mint mark an important detail for collectors. With such a massive production number, you might assume the 1984 P nickel is extremely common. And for ordinary examples, that's absolutely true. Most circulated 1984 P nickels are worth only face value or perhaps a small premium. But coin collecting has never been about the ordinary. It's about the exceptions. It's about the mistakes. And sometimes, it's about discovering something nobody else noticed. One reason collectors pay attention to the 1984 P nickel is the possibility of mint errors. During the coin production process, enormous machinery strikes metal blanks at incredible speeds. While the mint maintains strict quality control, mistakes occasionally occur. These mistakes can create coins that are dramatically different from normal examples. Imagine discovering a coin struck off-center, with part of the design missing. Or a coin struck through debris, leaving unusual marks permanently embedded in the surface. Or perhaps a dramatic die crack that creates a raised line across the design. These errors can transform an ordinary nickel into a highly sought-after collectible. The rarer and more dramatic the error, the greater the potential value. Some collectors spend years searching bank rolls hoping to uncover one of these hidden treasures. But errors aren't the only reason the 1984 P nickel attracts attention. Condition matters enormously. In coin collecting, preservation can mean the difference between a coin worth a few cents and one worth hundreds of dollars. Think about how many nickels have been dropped, scratched, carried in pockets, and exchanged countless times over decades. Now imagine finding one that somehow escaped all of that wear. A coin that looks almost exactly as it did the day it left the mint. Collectors call these examples mint state coins. The highest quality specimens are graded by professional services using a numerical scale. At the upper end of that scale, tiny differences become incredibly important. A single mark or imperfection can dramatically affect value. For certain modern coins, achieving one of the highest grades can be exceptionally difficult because even fresh coins often acquire contact marks during storage and transportation. That's why top-graded examples can command surprising prices. Collectors competing for the finest known examples are often willing to pay significant premiums. And this brings us to one of the biggest mysteries in modern coin collecting. Why do some seemingly common coins become valuable while millions of identical-looking examples remain practically worthless? The answer lies in rarity within condition. A coin may be common overall but extremely rare in pristine condition. It's a concept that surprises many new collectors. Imagine a book printed millions of times. Most copies become worn, damaged, or discarded over the years. But if only a handful remain in perfect condition decades later, those copies become special. The same principle applies to coins. The 1984 P nickel may have been produced by the hundreds of millions, but truly exceptional examples are far scarcer. And that scarcity creates demand. Another fascinating aspect of the Jefferson Nickels series is its accessibility. Unlike many rare coins that cost thousands of dollars to acquire, Jefferson Nickels can still be found in circulation, coin rolls, and inherited collections. That possibility fuels the excitement. Every collector dreams of making an unexpected discovery. Maybe it's a rare error. Maybe it's a remarkably preserved example. Maybe it's a variety that others overlooked. Those possibilities keep the hunt alive. Stories circulate throughout the hobby about collectors who searched through thousands of coins before finally finding something extraordinary. The thrill isn't just about money. It's about discovery. It's about holding a piece of history in your hand and realizing that countless people handled the same coin before you. It's about seeing details that most people never notice. And perhaps most importantly, it's about the possibility that treasure can still be found in everyday places. So what about the claim that a 1984 P Jefferson nickel is worth $4 million? As of today, there is no verified public record of a normal 1984 P Jefferson nickel selling for anything close to that amount. Extraordinary claims often spread online because they capture attention and spark curiosity. But serious collectors rely on verified auction records, professional grading data, and documented sales. That doesn't make the coin uninteresting. In fact, the truth may be even more fascinating. Because somewhere out there, hidden among ordinary nickels, could be a rare error coin waiting to be discovered. Could one still be sitting in a bank roll? Could one be hiding in an old coin collection? Could someone unknowingly spend it tomorrow? Those questions continue to drive collectors across the country. And that's the real magic of coin collecting. It's not just about rare coins locked away in museum displays. It's about the hunt. It's about the mystery. It's about the possibility that an ordinary object could hold an extraordinary story. The next time you receive change, Take a closer look at those nickels. Check the dates. Look for mint marks. Examine the details, because history often hides in plain sight. And sometimes the most overlooked coins have the most interesting stories to tell. If you enjoyed this journey into the world of hidden treasures and rare coins, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment below, and tell us the most interesting coin you've ever found in circulation. And remember, every coin has a story. The question is, which story will you discover next? I want you to imagine something for a moment. A person walks into a grocery store in 1985 with a few dollars in their pocket. They buy a loaf of bread, maybe a carton of milk, and receive some change. Among those coins is a simple-looking nickel. Nothing flashy, nothing rare-looking, just another 5-cent piece. They spend it without a second thought. But what if that ordinary nickel survived for decades? What if that small piece of pocket change is now sitting in a jar, a drawer, or even in your own collection today? And what if some examples of that seemingly common coin are worth far more than 5 cents? This is the fascinating story of the 1985 Jefferson nickel, a coin that millions of Americans handled without ever realizing the history, craftsmanship, and hidden collecting potential it carried. To understand why this coin matters, we need to travel back to the mid-1980s. America was experiencing a period of change and optimism. Personal computers were beginning to enter homes. Popular music was evolving rapidly. The Cold War still shaped world events, and Ronald Reagan was serving as President of the United States. In the middle of this changing world, the United States Mint continued producing billions of coins for everyday commerce. Among them was the Jefferson nickel, one of the most recognizable coins in American history. The Jefferson nickel first appeared in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel. The new design honored Thomas Jefferson, one of America's founding fathers and the third president of the United States. Jefferson was more than a politician. He was a philosopher, architect, inventor, diplomat, and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. His influence on American history was so significant that the Mint chose him as the face of the nation's 5-cent coin. For decades, Americans carried Jefferson's portrait in their pockets every day. By 1985, the design had already been in circulation for nearly half a century. The front of the coin features Jefferson's portrait, while the reverse displays Monticello, his famous Virginia estate. At first glance, the 1985 Jefferson nickel may seem completely ordinary. Yet every detail tells a story. The coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most historic minting facilities in the United States. For most of its history, Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark. That changed in 1980 when the Mint began adding the letter P to nickels struck in Philadelphia. That means the 1985 nickel proudly displays a small P mint mark, making it part of a relatively modern chapter in American coinage. Now here is where things become interesting. The Philadelphia Mint produced an enormous number of these nickels in 1985. More than 900 million were struck. With such a massive mintage, you might assume the coin could never become valuable. And for the most part, that assumption would be correct. Most circulated examples are worth only a small amount above face value. But coin collecting has always been full of surprises. Collectors know that rarity is not always about how many coins were produced. Sometimes it is about how many survive in exceptional condition. Think about it. A coin can be minted by the hundreds of millions, but if nearly all of them spend years bouncing around cash registers, vending machines, pockets, and coin jars, very few remain in pristine condition. That is exactly where the story of the 1985 Jefferson nickel becomes fascinating. Finding one in average condition is easy. Finding one that looks nearly perfect decades later is another matter entirely. Professional grading services carefully evaluate coins under magnification. They examine every tiny scratch, mark, and imperfection. The highest grade examples of the 1985 Jefferson nickel are surprisingly difficult to find. And when collectors compete for the very best examples, prices can rise dramatically. Some top-graded specimens have sold for hundreds and even thousands of dollars at auction. Imagine that. A coin originally worth 5 cents becoming worth enough to surprise even experienced collectors. But condition is only part of the story. Every year, a small number of minting mistakes escape the mint and enter circulation. These errors transform ordinary coins into treasures. Collectors constantly search for double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and other unusual mistakes. A 1985p nickel with a significant mint error can be worth many times more than a normal example. That possibility keeps treasure hunters checking their change even today. And that raises an exciting question. How many valuable coins have already passed through our hands without us noticing? How many rare mint errors have been spent on coffee, snacks, or parking meters? The answer is something no one can truly know. That mystery is one of the reasons coin collecting remains so addictive. Every coin carries the possibility of discovery. The 1985p Jefferson nickel also represents a unique moment in American manufacturing. Coin production is a remarkable process involving massive presses, precision engineering, and strict quality control. Each nickel is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. The alloy gives the coin its familiar appearance and durability. When these nickels rolled off the presses in Philadelphia, nobody knew which ones would survive untouched for decades. Nobody knew which examples would eventually earn elite grades. Nobody knew which coins might contain unusual errors. Yet those possibilities existed from the very moment the coins were struck. That uncertainty creates a sense of adventure that collectors love. There is another reason this coin continues to attract attention. It serves as a tangible connection to the past. When you hold a 1985 nickel, you are holding a small artifact from a specific moment in American history. Think about everything that has happened since then. Presidents have come and gone. Technology has transformed daily life. The internet changed the world. Entire industries appeared and disappeared. Yet that same nickel may still exist today, carrying the marks of its journey through time. Perhaps it sat in a cash register during the 1980s. Maybe it traveled across dozens of states. Perhaps it was tucked away in a collection and preserved for future generations. Every coin has a story, even if we never learn all of it. And that brings us to one of the most intriguing aspects of coin collecting. Unlike many historical artifacts locked behind museum glass, coins remain accessible. Anyone can search for them. Anyone can learn about them. Anyone can discover something extraordinary. You do not need to be wealthy. You do not need expensive equipment. Sometimes all it takes is curiosity and a careful eye. That idea has inspired countless collectors over the years. Many began with nothing more than a handful of coins found in pocket change. Some eventually uncovered pieces worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Others simply developed a deeper appreciation for history. Either way, the reward extended far beyond money. The 1985p Jefferson nickel embodies that spirit perfectly. It reminds us that value is not always obvious. Something that appears ordinary can become remarkable when viewed through the right lens. A simple 5-cent coin can reveal stories about American history, presidential legacy, industrial craftsmanship, and the excitement of treasure hunting. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson this coin has to offer. Sometimes the most fascinating discoveries are hiding in plain sight. The next time you receive a nickel in change, take a closer look. Check the date. Look for the mint mark. Examine the condition. You never know what you might find. Maybe it will be an ordinary coin worth only 5 cents. Or maybe it will be a forgotten survivor from 1985, preserved in exceptional condition and waiting to reveal its hidden value. That possibility is what keeps collectors searching. That possibility is what keeps history alive. And that possibility is why the humble 1985p Jefferson nickel continues to capture the imagination of coin enthusiasts around the world. So before you spend your next nickel, ask yourself one question. What if the treasure you're searching for has been sitting in your pocket all along? If you enjoyed this story and love discovering the hidden history and value behind everyday coins, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment with your favorite coin find, and join us for more incredible journeys into the world of rare coins, lost treasures, and the fascinating stories hiding in plain sight.